Let's look at the bigger picture of Hurricane Ophelia. This is important, so please do listen till the end. You don't need me to tell you that Hurricane Ophelia is rushing across the island of Ireland, already wreaking destruction in the south and west, including killing a woman in Waterford as a tree struck her car, tearing roofs off of buildings, and cutting power to over 10,000 people. This is the strongest hurricane measured this far east in the Atlantic since records began over 100 years ago. For instance, a whopping 191 km/h gust has been recorded at Fastnet Lighthouse in Cork. So, let's put this into some very important context. It's practically impossible to attribute any one event to climate change, but the trends are clear. Global warming is causing more frequent and more intense weather events, hurricanes, but also heat waves and droughts, cold waves and flooding. There is no doubt about this. The science is in. This will only become more severe as we move through the coming decades of the 21st century. It is even possible Europe could face Atlantic superstorms in the coming decades, which we haven't yet seen. Now, global warming means that the average temperature of the whole Earth is increasing and has been since the Industrial Revolution about 200 or 250 years ago. This has been caused by humans sending huge amounts of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere through industrial production. Now, Taoiseach Leo Varadkar and his government officials have stood in front of the cameras talking about deploying the army and so forth to protect people from Ophelia. But what is our plan for the future? Hurricane Ophelia of 2017 will pass this time, but what about 2018, 2019, 2020, 2025, 2030 and beyond? The plan for that is a joke, both for adaptation to climate change and mitigation of climate change. Okay, now let's go global. In 2015, over 190 nations came together for the Paris Agreement and promised to stay below 2 degrees Celsius increase above pre-industrial levels. When the huge increase in greenhouse gases began, really. Now, so the target is 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, but there is pretty much no chance that this will actually happen based on current projections. It's a fantasy. In reality, we're on track for 3 to 4 degrees of warming. Extremely dangerous climate change. Now, these numbers of degrees might sound abstract, but to give an idea, that's like saying we need to land on the runway. We're flying an airplane. To land on the runway, we need to land in 1 mile to make it. But then we actually overshoot it and we land in 1.5 miles or 2 miles, miss the runway and just plough into a housing estate. That's what we're on track for. The science shows it. Now, unfortunately, even that target of 2 degrees isn't safe, and it's actually being widely criticised by scientists, eminent scientists such as James Hansen, formerly of the NASA Goddard Institute, and Professor Michael Mann. And Professor Michael Mann, for instance, has said, too often in debates about climate change risk, the starting point is a presumption that only global warming in excess of 2 degrees Celsius represents a threat to humanity. So the target that we are missing isn't even good enough. Now, the sober reality is that we need emergency action to stop climate change. This is a global emergency of proportions humanity has never seen. Never. And while some action is being taken, it just isn't enough. We're marching off a cliff because the short-term interests of businesses and politicians trying to get elected are more important than the welfare of literally billions of people on this earth. And there's nothing new there, as we know, we've seen it hundreds of times before. Now, 50% of emissions come from the top 10% of humans by wealth. That's a massive divide. Rich countries and also wealthier people in all countries must take the lead in rapidly ratcheting down our greenhouse gas emissions to zero. Yes, zero by 2040 at the latest if we want a fighting chance at avoiding dangerous climate change. In Ireland, we owe it to ourselves and to the rest of the world who didn't cause this situation. Now, the fact is that nothing changes without people power. We've seen that over and over again. So it's time to wake up as a country, north and south, and pour into the streets to stop climate change. There is no getting around the fact that we will need to turn our society inside out and majorly socially innovate. That's inconvenient, but business as usual has put us on a path to mass suicide, the path we're on at the moment. So outside the box thinking is our only option left if we're actually serious about this. Now, this stuff is depressing, okay, let's face it, but I'm really not trying to scaremonger. We need to face the truth in order to have any meaningful hope of a bright future. So we are so eerily passive as a society while our world is being turned upside down by climate change. Now, it's not a future issue, it's happening now. So it's us on the streets or it's floods in the streets, and we have the chance to decide now. If Ophelia gets us moving on that, then it did some good. This is not someone else's problem. So I'm going to ask everybody watching this video, what will you do to stop climate change? Educate yourself, educate others, organise, find like-minded people to act together with, resist, change the system, and don't give in. And I hope that everybody is keeping safe.